War II. The Second World War, also known as World War II, was one of the largest conflicts of the 20th century. It involved many countries across the world, including Great Britain, although most of the war was fought in Europe.
It started when Germany invaded Poland. Although there were several factors that contributed to war, one of the most famous figures of the war was Adolf Hitler, who attempted to take control of Europe along with the Nazi Party.
Great Britain, along with other countries such as France, joined the war to stop Hitler and his allies. The war lasted 6 years and Hitler was eventually defeated. However, millions of lives were lost during this process.
World War II was an incredibly important event in world history, and we still mourn the millions who died.
Here are some basic facts about the war. The war lasted 6 years and 1 day.
World War II began on September 1st, 1939.
World War II ended on September 2nd, 1945.
The war began when Germany invaded Poland.
Great Britain declared war against Germany on September 3rd, 1939.
Germany was led by Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party. Jewish people were sent to concentration camps under Hitler's rule, where they lived in poor conditions and were forced to work.
The war had two sides, the Allies and the Axis powers.
Great Britain was bombed heavily during the Blitz.
The United States, who also involved in the war.
It's estimated that 55 million people died.
Most women stayed at home and took over the men's jobs when they went to fight in factories.
Neither side used poisonous gas.
Winston Churchill helped the Allies to victory.
Some countries such as Spain and Switzerland were neutral and didn't get involved in the war.
This was the Second World War of the 20th century. The first took place between 1914 and 1918.
The Battle of Britain was the first ever battle to be fought only in the air using aeroplanes.
Great Britain had two prime ministers during the war, Neville Chamberlain and Winston Churchill.
It was Japan that officially ended the war on the 2nd September 1945.
Now for some more detailed information on the impacts of the war on normal people living in Britain from 1939 to 1945 and in the year that followed.
Evacuation!
At 11:07 a.m. on Thursday, 31st August 1939, the British government gave the order to evacuate children, pregnant women and other vulnerable people from the cities. The government was worried that British cities and towns would be targets for bombing raids by aircraft.
Evacuations tried to ensure the safety of young children from the cities that were considered to be in danger of Germany bombing, cities like London, Coventry, Birmingham, Swansea, etc.
Who was evacuated? 827,000 school children and their teachers, 524,000 mothers with children under 5, 12,000 pregnant women, some disabled people were also evacuated for safety.
Here's the recommended list of things the children had to bring with them when they were evacuated. Boys, 2 vests, 2 pairs of pants, pair of trousers, 2 pairs of socks, 6 handkerchiefs, and a pullover or jersey. Girls, vest, pair of knickers, petticoat, 2 pairs of stockings, 6 handkerchiefs, slip like a very long vest with shoulder straps, blouse or cardigan. Children were evacuated mainly by train. They were sent to smaller towns and villages in the countryside. Some children were sent to stay with relatives outside in the countryside, but most were sent to live with complete strangers.
Billeting officers were responsible for helping find homes for the evacuees.
Being an evacuee must have been scary and excited at the same time. The children had to leave their families and homes behind and try to fit in with host families in the country.
We've been reading the book Goodnight Mr. Tom, which is a story about Willie Beach, a shy young boy from London who is evacuated to the country to live with a miserable old man called Tom. We really enjoyed the way both Willie and Tom changed so much and became like father and son as the story progressed. It helped us better understand how it must have felt to be an evacuee.
Rationing!
Before the Second Second World War started, Britain imported about 55 million tonnes of food a year from other countries. After war was declared in September 1939, the British government had to cut down on the amount of food it brought in from abroad as Germany submarines started attacking British supply ships. There was a worry that this would lead to shortages of food supplies in the shops, so the British government decided to introduce a system of rationing.
Rationing made sure people got the equal amount of food every week. The government was worried that as the food became scarcer, prices would rise and poorer people might not be able to afford to eat. There was also a danger that some people might hoard food, leaving none for others.
Rationing of food lasted 14 years and ended on July 4th, 1954. Every person in Britain was given a ration book. They had to register and buy their food from their chosen shops. There were no supermarkets, so people had to visit several different shops to buy meat, vegetables, bread and other goods. When people wanted to buy some food, the items they bought were crossed off in their ration book by the shopkeeper.
On 8th January 1940, bacon, butter and sugar were rationed. Many different foods were added to the food ration list during the war. These included meat, jam, biscuits, fish, tea, breakfast cereals. Each person was allowed a certain amount, and everything you bought was measured in pounds and ounces. Even the Queen had to abide by the law. She's got the same amount of tea and toast as everyone else.
Propaganda!
Propaganda posters were used heavily in World War II.
They were used to try and influence public opinion.
That means that they wanted to convince people to think a certain way and do certain things, all in the name of helping the war effort.
Here are some examples of famous propaganda posters. The most famous is this one, Keep Calm and Carry On. It's a simple and important message, perfect for a poster like this.
The Swansea Blitz!
Swansea Blitz was heavy bombing of Swansea by the German Air Force on the 19th to the 21st of February 1941.
The German bombers were aiming for the Dorkstown warehouses, but instead they hit the houses on Town Hill, where many people were asleep in bed.
230 people were killed and 397 were injured.
The reason Swansea was targeted was because coal was being exported from the docks, which means ships were taking it to different parts of the world to help the Allies power machines.
It was also to make the people feel that the war was lost.
It didn't work. The people of Swansea banded together to rebuild. The King, the Queen and even Winston Churchill visit Swansea to boost the morale of the people.
Many of the cities in the UK were bombed during the war, London being hit worst. They called the bombings Blitzkrieg, which is German for lightning war, as the people who suffered the bombing described it as sounding like thunder and lightning.
Songs of the War!
We have also been learning some songs that were popular during World War II.
Songs were very important during the war because they were boosted to the morale of the soldiers and they made them feel braver.
It also made them remember what they were fighting for. Their king, their country, and their family back home. Here are some examples of some songs we have been learning to sing and play this tune.